Kia ora and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast, where we have inspiring conversations with New Zealand artists. I'm your host, Mandy Yarkich. These conversations are intimate, uplifting and insightful. The guests on the show have absolutely enriched my life, and I'm sure their stories will have the same effect on you. Thank you so much for joining me to listen to these amazing people speak about what drives them, the way they work, and their personal takes on life. Elliot Love is a contemporary artist based in Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland. His hyper-realistic paintings depict cars from the 80s and 90s era, set within a city's still and lifeless environment. Elliot works in oil on canvas, often on an unusually small scale. Many of the cars he paints are reaching the end of their lifespan. Several of the cars he has painted no longer exist. With this in mind, Elliot looks to convey not just a moment in time, but the passing of an era. In this very inspiring episode, Elliot talks about how he gave up art at school in year 13 and went on to study PE at university for 1 year before realising this wasn't the direction he wanted to go. Viewing New Zealand artist Tim Wilson's gallery in Queenstown 5 years ago, at the age of 20, was a pivotal moment for Elliot and a major catalyst in his decision to become a full-time professional artist, which he has been ever since. Elliot shares how he relies on instinct when choosing cars and urban scenes to paint, how he organises his compositions, what he chooses to leave out or add in, and what he loves to capture. He reflects on how he best uses his time, how he feels about social media, and how he stays present. When asked of his dreams for the future, he says, simply, "The next painting session is the most important thing in my practice." Hello, Elliot.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very well. First time out in Muriwai, so it's good to be out here.
Yeah, I can't believe it.
Been out in Auckland 3 years now, so a bit of a wind up to get out and about a bit more, but we can catch up for that. I'll get out and about a bit more this summer, I think. That'll be the goal.
Definitely, if we hopefully get a summer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so welcome to Muriwai and welcome to the Creative Matters podcast.
Great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, I am too. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story, and I think there's lots of people out there too who are intrigued to hear how you got to where you've got in such a short amount of time. So you're obviously a bit of a car fanatic. You drove up my driveway in a bronzy Mazda 323, and it kind of reminds me of my teenage years, which is the 80s, and you're really interested in cars from the 80s, 90s mostly, aren't you?
Yeah, that interest does peak from the cars that my friends were getting into during our high school years. It was back in sort of 2013 to 2015. We would just get our hands on basically whatever we could, which sort of turned into late 80s and 90s Japanese imports. A lot of Toyota Corollas, 323s. I think one or two friends had 323s. Honda Civics, plenty of those. All the boring stuff, Ford Lasers, and that was massively. It was a ticket to freedom in a way. First cars, no rules, and we were out and about. So I definitely have a emotional connection to that era. I just think they look aesthetic as well.
Yeah.
The boxy hard lines is something I look for in my work, is where I can place strong features, and those cars just have all those angles. Modern cars have just softened out, and they're also round and smooth. So
yeah, it's so true.
For whatever reason that is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think I had a laser, when I was in my 20s, and all those what's it like, Starlets and those kind of funny cars, Mitsubishis.
Starlets are great. Yeah, I've painted a few of those. I've got there's one Starlet in the show that I've got coming up next month. There's a Ford Laser. My 323 is in there twice. I better get this handled now. So it's nicknamed the Scottish Fold because it doesn't have wing mirrors. So it looks like those cats that have no ears. And it's like got the ears that are tucked back. So that's the coined name of my car. But
I like it.
I think it's just a treat to see those cars. I've only had my 323 a few months now, but it's turned into a head turner. You know, driving around, people toot, waving at me. You know, great for the ego, very validating, but it's just funny. It's like a throwback, a point of relatability. So,
and they are quite funky these days. They sort of have got a bit of coolness about them. Yeah,
there's a sort of vintage retro aspects sort of starting to sneak in a bit. There's just so few left. It's just a sort of, you do a double take when you see them. I know I do.
Yeah.
Double take, and then I grab my camera as quick as I can.
Yeah. And it's so great that you're capturing sort of that era of cars, because as you say, one day they'll all be gone.
They will. It's certainly a dying breed, you know. The truth is they're getting harder and harder to pass WOF. WOF rules may crack down. There's more of a push for electric cars and stuff like that. I've had a few people frown at me. They'll be in like a Nissan Leaf or something with their little hybrid or something, and they're like, he's pushing around a 40-year-old petrol engine. Like, how dare he? But yeah, it's I'm racing as quick as I can to cover ground there, and yeah, I've got quite a lot of reference material from the last 4 years built up.
Yeah, so, I bet you have. I can't wait to hear about your process and how you go about collecting these images. But can we start with just talking about your childhood, and if this sort of love of cars was around before you were a teen, or if it was that was something that happened a bit later?
Yeah, my childhood was very sporty, very active. My dad was a ski instructor at one stage, and him and my mum were traveling around Europe, and he was a ski instructor in Andorra for a bit. So my sister and I were learning to ski very young. We used to go up to Treble Cone, Cadrona and Treble Cone in South Island, like each winter. A lot of skiing, a lot of kicking rugby balls. I come home from school filthy most days, covered in mud, just from running around and tackling kids. But the car thing, my dad's just a natural car wizard. He's just like got a running commentary of every, interesting car that ever goes past. Muscle cars. He likes French cars. He's had something like 23 Citroens, 15 Peugeots. Might be more than that. It's actually, the numbers are ridiculous. He's always telling me about which cars he regrets selling the most. I think he had a Citroen DS 23 Palace, which is like the top model of the Citroen DS. I'm not sure if you've seen that car. It looks like a spaceship. It's ridiculous.
The one that rises when you start driving, when you start the ignition.
Exactly. It's got the pneumatic suspension, goes up and down. He loves it. He thinks French cars were great. Pretty underpowered compared to, definitely underpowered compared to all the muscle car scene, but he's just obsessed with the sophistication of how well they handled and stuff like that. And there's been many times actually, where I've got images of a certain car, or I'm going to start a painting, no idea what the car is for titling the painting, and I show it to my dad, and he just knows it right off the bat. He's like, it's like a 74, might be 73 actually, because of these headlights, and I'm like, oh my goodness,
wow.
He's just the encyclopedia. But
that's amazing. So he was obviously totally into that, and that kind of wore off on you a little bit. Yeah, definitely. It just by osmosis, being near his passion and knowledge of cars. I would admit I don't exactly have that knowledge per se. I can't title cars and see them exactly and know this car's that and things like that. I more look at it just from
aesthetic aesthetic compatibility for a composition. You know, the shape of it, I find oftentimes if it's a truck or something boxy or like a square shape, like maybe a Toyota Surf, Hilux Surf, then I may be looking for like a square panel or square shape to put that painting on, in which case I'm also looking at the buildings behind. Are they going to be square? Things like that. So my car knowledge is quite limited, but I just look at them straight through the aesthetic lens on how it's going to work in a potential painting.
Yeah,
so.
I can see that. And as a child, were you into drawing?
No, not heaps. I think I liked computer games a wee bit. There was this motocross game I remember playing heaps. There wasn't too much drawing. I love just being active and doing things, weird little things. I remember kicking rugby balls so much as a kid. My sister was a few years older than me, so she was at high school. I think her high school finished at 3:30, and my school primary that I was at finished at 3:00. So I just kick rugby balls for like 45 minutes every day while mum went to go get Harriet and then come back for me. That was just every day. Always working on skills. Just fell in love, I think, with the process of slow refinement. And yeah, I got into cricket more sort of in the later teenage years. I'm probably not going to jump to that just yet, but cricket is definitely a game where there's endless levels of small nuanced refinement that you can just work on, and I just loved that process of training and just working and fine-tuning things. I think that's sort of just part of me now. It's definitely this addiction that comes into my painting practice.
Yeah, it's come through into your practice. And you were born in Christchurch?
Yeah, Rangiora, which is like 30 minutes out, and then lived in Christchurch age 1 to 5. Came down to Dunedin in 2002, I believe it was. What happened after that? It was we have quite a small sort of tight-knit family. Mum, dad, my older sister Harriet. It's kind of just been the four of us. That was another thing that's probably worth mentioning from a childhood point of view, is that it was quite, I wouldn't say antisocial. My parents, I'm pretty convinced of the most supportive parents on the freaking planet. And they were always close. And, but I would just say my dad's parents were in Sydney, mum's parents were in Wales, and we don't really have cousins, so we never had like massive family gatherings. So that sort of, I think, has contributed somewhat to being happy, spending a lot of time by myself, which is the dream. It's it's an absolute necessity as an artist. So that was like a sort of taste of certainly like integrated into my upbringing, was just sort of a quieter time, not heavy, rowdy socializing. So, yeah.
And how amazing that you have that connection with your parents, and that, you know, they have been so supportive. That's, you know, such a gift, isn't it?
It's a gift. It's, man, I've heard stories from kids that are trying to say like avoid uni or exit uni prematurely and getting all this resistance back. And it's, if it's not their path, then how can anyone else? I don't see how anyone else can argue with that. I told my parents in 2017 that I was thinking about exiting PE school, which I'd done for 1 year, and they just looked at me straight and said, "Yeah, if it's not the go, like, you know, you're out." And they've had they haven't had like they've had an adventure of a life. You know, they were in a Volkswagen Combi for 6 years back to back all across Europe. Mum was a hairdresser by trade. Dad was, he'd do whatever was necessary, doing like handyman jobs, working in restaurants. They just wanted to go skiing back to back every winter and travel around. So their approach to life is much more instinctual than potentially from other households, which is more rigid, and that's great.
Yeah,
because
that's really great.
How do you tell how do you tell a conservative set of parents that you're going to go do art? It's like, well, good luck, you know. But yeah, that's sort of a taster of where I've come from and what it was like growing up. So
it sounds like an amazing childhood. And when you went to high school, did you find the art room and sort of start discovering the skills that you had?
It was slow. Like the art I did in year 9 and 10 was rubbish. It was just someone without much skills getting into it. By year 11 and 12, I was doing NCEA level 1 and 2 painting. And I just started to get addicted to the process of making. And once that's starting to happen, then your skills naturally follow suit, because you're carving out enough time to allow your brain to, you know, organize all the patterns that make things easier and garner your skill set, essentially. I would say it was so strange. I quit art in year 12. I finished year 12, but I didn't do it in year 13. And it was social conditioning really that snuck in and got me out of there. It was so much fun in year 12. I literally got my year 12 artboard finished in July. I think it was finished 8 or 9 weeks early. And that was just because I had so much fun painting across the school holidays, which they told us to do. And I was like, sweet, that's all good. Not many people actually did it. Everyone was on the back foot late in the year, but I just did it. And I got my artboard knocked out, and because it just flew past. It was my favorite thing of the year. And I was literally under the impression that it was almost too good to be true. So I was starting to like hear snippets and stuff. I don't know, hear snippets necessarily, but it was like get a real job, get into a real profession. So ditched art, did all the maths and sciences in year 13, which, you know, calculus, stats, chem, physics, and I think I did PE or something. PE was quite academic in year 13, believe it or not. But yeah, there was no room for art. I let it go. My art teacher was appalled, to say the least. He just thought it was ridiculous.
I can imagine.
And I just didn't see it at the time. I just said, I can't, this is too fun. It's not real.
Really?
I just didn't think it was real. And I was following I was studying a wee bit of my favorite sort of New Zealand artists. At the time it was, I didn't know heaps, but I was definitely saving some of my favorite Graham Sydney paintings to my phone. I still see my laptop has like some old saved photos from like 2014, 2015. And I just didn't believe that it was viable. So I snuck off and went and did all the grindy subjects,
academic
that
subjects. And did you miss it?
I didn't miss it, basically because I just told myself that it didn't matter anymore. I just exited it from my mind. I said, this is it. My sister was at uni. She was doing really well, and she's just a natural academic. She can watch Netflix shows, have a robust social life, and get A's. And I was like not built like that. I could put my head down and get good grades at school and stuff, but it was just not as natural to me. I don't know. I just needed to be doing something. It couldn't all be theory. Theory's like 10%. Action is the rest. It's always been like that from a sporting point of view. If you want to work on anything with cricket, you have a plan, but then go and practice it 1,000 times. Think about it for 10 minutes, practice it for 100 minutes, something like that, you know? And I just let it go. It was, I don't know how else to say it than that, really.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to go there, you know, that kind of story, because that will be quite useful for some teenagers to hear that.
I'll say something that is probably going to rile up some feathers potentially, but at the end of year 13, I was like August, I believe. This is so crazy. This is literally what happened. We all got lined up, all the year 13s got lined up in the library, and they had a massive single file of everyone in the whole cohort. I think there was like 120 people left in my year 13 group. And we got lined up, and at the front of the queue, you went to the left, which was you'd sign up for university, and then on the right, you'd go to Polytech. And there was no third line.
Wow.
That was it. And I don't even know what to say. If that's not like a just, groupthink, herd mentality, all happening right at once. And I just went to uni. I was like, oh, I did all right, I guess. Got year 12 went well. I had the grades to go to uni. I hadn't botched high school, and I had to go to Polytech. But I went on the left line, and suddenly I was signed up for uni, and it was all just happening around me. I think it was just this melting pot
got caught up in the flow. And what school you were at? King's, weren't you?
King's High School, yeah, fantastic school, by the way. At least while I was there, Dan Reddick's the rector is hugely influential. He actually teaches in Auckland now, and I need to catch up with him. I believe he teaches at a high school in Epsom, but he just drummed into us like the importance of, this value system, essentially, of like personal excellence, having high standards in all you do, having like a strong moral code that you refer back to and abide by at all times. Just a very sought after principle. A lot of schools wanted him, so I understand. So he was, I timed it perfectly. He came to King's 2 years before I joined. I think he expelled like 80 kids in his first year. He just cleaned the swamp up, and I got the good end of King's. But it was.
Wow, that's really interesting that they had that system at the end. It's just it's crazy.
I mean, yeah, that was it. Like that was the funnel. It was like it was just laid out, and it was step by step, and you go through it. And I was like, how do you even? What do you do there? No one's gonna have the balls to step out of line. And no one's even thinking that anyway. It's just like, this is it. This is the where the sheep herd's going next, down this little aisle. And I was caught up. Luckily, I guess, I had a gap year in 2016. That was my first year out of high school. I paused the PE degree that I'd signed up to. 2017, I commenced it. It was a weird period because I was actually looking at going to play a 6 months of cricket over in the UK summer, New Zealand winter, UK summer, and try and get 3 seasons of cricket back to back. But I can't really remember what happened. I started to have this nagging knee injury, and I just thought, let me have a crack at uni. I didn't have much happening. 2017. 2016, I did do some landscape paintings, which was very fun. Still so much fun, but I just hadn't joined the dots yet, I think.
You sort of it as a hobby.
Yeah, it was just fun. It wasn't viable though. I couldn't do it for life. That was not in my head yet. For whatever reasons, just hadn't seen enough proof of it. Maybe I hadn't talked to people that were doing it, which I hadn't, or else I would have been thinking differently by definition. If you're hearing different inputs, you have different thoughts. I just didn't have any of that yet. My art teacher did plead with me, but I just ignored it, Sorry, Mr. Kennedy.
As you do when you're a teenager. It's pretty common. Yeah. And just a quick question going back to your art at high school. Do you see glimmers of your art practice now and what you were making then?
I had no idea what I was doing back then. I had some idea, it's burning into your subconscious, at least the fundamentals of, say, mixing color. Like, I didn't know how to mix colors. I was doing it, obviously, to make some paintings, but, so there was some, like, groundwork, I guess, done, but no, it seems different. From about 2019 onwards, once I made a firm decision to get back into it properly, it did seem different.
And you weren't sort of drawn to realistic drawing or realistic painting at that time?
I love Graham Sidney. I didn't know many artists to look at. I was always drawn to realism, I think. There's a certain precision that I just enjoy about representational art and like high-level representational art, potentially tied in with the details of practicing cricket skills. I loved maths through high school. I always struggled with English. It was just a natural proclivity towards maths, and whatever side of the brain that is, my other side of the brain is a little behind. So mathematics, geometry, precision. I think if I wasn't painting, I don't really like to think of it because I believe now I'm absolutely doing what I should be doing. But if I wasn't painting, I would say I would potentially be engineering, doing something like architecture,
yeah,
mathematics, things with clear parameters, essentially. No gray areas, very much like rigid start and end points in which things work and function in.
Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
There's a real connection. So you left PE, uni, studying PE at uni. What happened after that?
It was it worked perfectly looking back. So I started flatting 2018. I think it was my third year out of high school. The previous 2 years I'd been at home still. Flatting 2018. I actually tutored this class that I'd studied the previous year at uni. It was what was it? Physy 191, which is like human body systems. It's like the PE version of health science first year human body systems class. So I was doing that part-time. That was fun. It was nice to just relay some ideas back to the year below me. Hopefully they got some assistance from that. I didn't do it in second semester because things started to change pretty quickly. I had part-time work. I had a lot of spare time. So part-time work, I was working like 25 hours a week. There was a brief stage where I was helping with my parents' business at the time, but that just did nothing for me. I wanted to help out, but it was too social, essentially. I don't know. I'm not phenomenal at dealing with people, and I just had to. I didn't have any momentum, and so the story goes, it was middle of 2018. My flatmates and I were on this drinking trip, essentially in Queenstown, and I think we were there for like 3 or 4 nights. Thursday to Sunday was our last day, and I dragged them all on the last day to Tim Wilson's gallery, the late Tim Wilson, rest in peace. And my friends, I will just bluntly say they weren't inclined towards anything artistic overly, and certainly not paintings. They saw these paintings of Tim Wilson's and were just freaking stunned. And it was just like this eureka moment for me. I just said, this is it. Like, this is the perfect space. I've done these other things. I gave the uni route a test. It just didn't click for me. And I had so much time available. I went the next day in Dunedin. I was down at Art Zone, which is art supply store, buying canvases, buying paints, getting some better brushes than what we had laying around the house. And I just said, that's it. I'm going to paint. I'm going to make a living from this somehow,
Really?
some way. But I just said, this is my life now, and I'll just paint until I can do this professionally, and pull the trigger. So
That is incredible. And is that purely, do you think, the inspiration from the Master of Light, Tim Wilson, or is it something you think that you had in the back of your mind that kind of was ignited by his work?
It sounds very strange, but it must have really been the only time that I'd gone and stepped foot in it wasn't an exhibition, it was his own gallery. I believe it was down on Beach Street in Queenstown. He had a lady there, showing us the paintings, dimming the lights. We dimmed the lights, the whole painting's changed. It was extraordinary. And I just thought it was very not humble, but it was real, like finished paintings ready to sell. And at the end of the room, there was like a couple work in progress seascapes. So they were more interesting than the finished works. I was like, what is this? This is real. This is someone making these paintings. Here's the finished results, and just as interesting or more interestingly so were these work in progresses. So I could see this is a process. This is a human. Tim Wilson was a genius, but he's still a human being, and he'll you could see his earlier works, which I started to study, and I said, there's a natural progression here. He's improved enormously, as you would over time. And he would say, like, it took him 30, 40 years to figure out the nuance and technicalities and skill set that he had towards the end. He didn't have that the whole time. He earned it. And I guess I'd seen enough through cricket how natural progression of skills works, whether it was from myself, whether it was from guys around me that were my age and younger and now playing professional cricket. People change over time. If you can keep the magnifying glass in one place, then you get a good habit structure in place, and then you let time pass. A lot of things can happen quite quickly. And I just said enough of the bullshit. Let me get into this. I've been ignoring this too long, and it was starting to jog my memory how much fun painting was in high school. I'd intentionally ignored it just to go and abide social conditioning, essentially. How crazy is that?
Yeah.
Shocking to think.
In hindsight, but at the time it's so easy to get caught up.
Yeah, it's
and you're not sure, before you actually go there, you're not sure if it's a bad move not to go and get that degree. It's only in hindsight that it's sort of that you have more perspective, I suppose.
You're going to get ridiculed. The librarian's going to frown at you while you've left the queue.
Don't upset the librarian.
It was crazy. And I'm like, there was like some course advisors sitting at a desk. I'm like, what the, like, this is insane to think about now. We're going to have a 10-second conversation, and then they're like, oh, we'll tick the box for PE degree. And I'm like,
and that's your life.
They don't know anything about me.
Yeah.
We've greeted each other. We didn't even shake hands. And now they're like, now I'm here. Now I'm like on this other trajectory. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like it speaks in large terms for just where the overall school system's at. No one's intentionally trying to mess people over, but there's just it could be revised, shall we say.
Yes, absolutely.
I think people should have a gap year, try and travel. It's pretty expensive. It's very difficult to do. It seems to be getting more difficult to do, funnily enough, but some space. The only reason I got back into art as quick as I did in 2018 is because I had nothing going on. I was working 25 hours a week. And what do? You sleep maybe 56. Sleep 8 hours, 7 days a week, 56 there, 25 hours work. I got 80 hours left to do things. And I just filled a huge gap. The timing was perfect.
Yeah, which is so good.
Into place.
And sometimes having that sort of moment to sort of collect your thoughts in some ways, rather than just, on that crazy race course, is enough to sort of help you to come to different decisions, which is great. And you must have felt that you were quite good at art to make that kind of decision.
Not necessarily. I just knew I could like make a decision and stick to it. I think I backed that, and it was good that there wasn't any other superior opportunities. If I was booked in to go play a summer of UK, a UK summer the following winter, that would have been a distraction. If I was still tutoring this class at uni, which I wasn't doing in second semester, that would have been a distraction. I just had, everything was like, I don't know, the stove, the kitchen top was clear and it was just ready for the new thing.
Yeah.
The chopping board was like, we'd cleared that and it was like, what's next? And it just...
Yeah. And the planets aligned.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the beginning, and that's only what, 4 or 5 years ago you made that decision. 5
years, yeah, basically on the dot. So yeah, it was, yeah, I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
It could have been different. I've met artists at galleries who are like 30 years older than me, and we were, essentially having our first show at the same time. And they just said, man, like, you have age on your side. And they'd maybe their career was a teacher or something for 40 years. And now they're circling back to this passion that's been stuffed under the blanket.
Yeah.
4 decades, something like that. And I'm like, well, I only lost like 3 years. So
yeah, and you wouldn't have lost it. You know, it wouldn't have been a waste of time. That's, you know, you needed that. You needed to go to those other places probably to find yourself in that place in the end.
It happened as it happened. Very grateful that it fell into place as soon as it did.
Yeah.
Could have got swept into the something else trajectory for a much longer time.
Yeah. That's brilliant. And we're all very happy this has happened to you as well.
Yeah.
So can you tell us the story? Like, what happened next? How did you actually get going with your practice?
Yeah, so 2018, once I'd bought those first few canvases and brushes, I would say dabbling would be the word. I started dabbling away at some landscape paintings, traditional landscapes out in the open country, mostly just from some cell phone pics. I got one of my friends to take a photo of Lake Waihola as we drove back from Queenstown that night. I was going to need a photo. I'm going to be painting tomorrow, so get me a reference. He took this wonky photo of the lake while we were like boosting down the road, and that was this painting that I kicked things off with again. And there was a few other landscapes that I did. My parents kept them. They weren't anything phenomenal, but they were just brushing the cobwebs off, shall we say. By October, I started the first ever street scene that I'd done, which was this scene of Vogel Street, which is kind of this, it's like a trendy sort of cafe street in Dunedin, a lot of old heritage buildings. And I had this image that I'd taken just looking south, nice lighting, there was a big shadow across the road. And I don't know what happened. The landscape thing was fun. It was good to just get into the flow of mixing paints and getting the feel of the materials again. But I just said, well, I need to be painting the urban landscape because I don't spend a huge amount of time out and about. A lot of my inspiration to do any landscape paintings was kind of coming from whatever else other people were doing. It was like seeing them kind of feeding their ideas off. I was watching, or not watching, but seeing a lot of John Toomer's paintings back then, and I was like, these are cool, let me sort of build compositions similar to that. But it wasn't my own thing by any means. Vogel Street painting started quite big at the time, complicated street scene, and I was working on it from October till January. I think it took a couple 100 hours, and it was weird. I was not ready for that painting. It was the most frustrating painting I've ever done, but I just had this sort of competitive stubbornness coming through for whatever reason, just to keep scrapping, keep reworking. The building on the right, on the left, I reworked. It took 60 hours. I painted it like 6 times because I just couldn't quite get the color and the colors right. So anyway, a brutal painting. I learned a lot from it, but that was the first street scene that I'd ever done, and I loved it. I loved the hard lines, the right angles everywhere. Heaps of, like, there was a nice vanishing point down the road, and it was so different than landscapes that are very curvy and abstract in places. Bushes, there's no right angles.
Yeah, and becoming more architectural. That urban scene, which is very much a part of your paintings now, did that include a car, or was the car a central focus point?
No, that painting didn't have any particular car theme at the time. It was more just me dipping my toes for the first time into a street scene, which I'd never done. The car theme came on the next painting. I was invited to a show in January of 2019. So this was late 2018, and the show was the Aspiring Art Prize, which is in Wanaka. 2 very good friends, John and Alice Toomer, both artists, father and daughter. both realists, and Alice knew that I was kind of getting back into painting. She'd seen some landscapes that I'd done on this small time Instagram page that was starting to ever so slowly grow, but she said, come check out this show. And the Vogel Street scene, which I ended up finishing February next year, I had to pause because it was going so slow. I wasn't going to make that deadline. But I started this new little painting, tiny, 4 by 6 inches of, it's called the Red Corolla, which was this deadbeat 90s Toyota Corolla. We saw it once more about 6 months later, and it was horrific, and it'll be gone now. It's one of those cars that is no longer with us. But it was filthy and rusty and just great. It was in front of I believe it was the old Otago Daily Times factory building down at the Dunedin Wharf. And just a simple side-on composition, car on the left, and there was this yellow big garage door on the right, quite balanced. The two sort of shapes of the square door with the car on the left sort of counterweighted each other to give quite a simple but balanced composition. And yeah, I pushed that painting out quickly in between Christmas and New Year's, and I actually missed the deadline. They wanted finished photographs of the work by XYZ date, but I sent them like a very, very close finished painting and said, look, this is not going to be finished by the cutoff for entering the show, but I will have this done by the show. And they said, that looks really cool. Get it done and we'll see you there. So that was my first ever car scene to tick off the body of work that I've been on now. I got off to a good start. It actually won a prize at that show, a $2,000 landscape prize. And they called it the urban landscape prize. And they sort of, I don't think they adjusted the definition of the award, but they just said, this is a street scene, it's really cool. We'll call it the urban landscape. And yeah, it was good. You know, it was a lot of encouragement quite quickly.
That is quite incredible that your first painting with a car did so well. And it's really interesting too that you went so small, which was probably a time-saving thing at the time. Definitely
a time constraint, yeah. I didn't know anything at the time. I didn't know how long my paintings took. It didn't matter to me how long they took. I had no desire really to sell them and have like a deadline or some goal of like I want this finished so I can sell it by X point to earn this much. None of that was there. It was just purely let me paint this as well as I can, essentially within the limitations of the skill set available to me at the time. Just some mug really figuring out oil paint. I don't know anything. And color mixing was, it hurt my brain. I had to literally think. I'm like, all right, I've got this brick wall. The value is too light. So what are my options? I've got yellow or white. I was just literally learning the color wheel from scratch. I don't think my high school color wheel intuition carried through. I'd never really learned it. I was just like, you had to really think. And when I was trying to level up my skills, the margins become less and less. So I'm like, okay, the color's too dark. I've got a good red here, but it's too dark. How do I lighten the value? I got yellow or white. Put in too much white and suddenly my red bricks go like creamy and faded, and I've killed it. I've gone way too heavy with white, which it makes things quite like milky and blue a lot of the time. Took away the warmth. So then I put in yellow, and then you know, you just go round and round. Now it's too light. I've got to darken it again, and it was so painful. But that painting was literally the size of an iPhone. It took 60 hours. I've still got the phone records. I've tracked every hour of painting I've ever done, which sounds neurotic, and it is, but it was just, let me paint it as well as I can at whatever cost. And 60 hours, not necessarily from efficient work, but just from like scrapping my way to the end.
And how did you find that with using oil paint, with it having to wait for it to dry? If you're having trouble with the color making,
It was, I don't tend to have that problem. Most of my works are usually, if I work on a passage in oil paint, it's generally dry the next day because I put the smallest amount of paint down to get the job done, essentially. It's very fine. Generally, if you look at my paintings from the side, trying to see if there's any surface texture, there should be hopefully none. I actively use the least amount of paint to get the job done. Just especially on the small ones, it's a tough thing to be throwing paint down too quick and too heavy because you get build-ups, you get this, what's the geographical term, like topography, essentially building up on this tiny space, and you got to fight with that. So to keep it as flush and flat as possible is usually the goal.
And is that also about trying to get it as much like a photograph as possible?
Not necessarily. It is still a painting, and no matter what, like you can get up close enough to very tight paintings by artists and you see the hand. It's a painting. It's just more so to keep things tidy when I'm working at a very small scale is necessary. And I in terms of like just a small technique aside, I think of the palette where I'm mixing paints and the canvas on which I'm painting the piece as two palettes. So imagine you're mixing a small amount of paint on your palette and then putting it down onto the painting. I'm usually going so small and like these uncommitted steps on the painting that there's plenty of time to rework it. If you throw paint down too heavy, especially at a small scale, but just in general, you have very little ability to rework that. So I'm working in colors into the painting. So essentially I've got two palettes. I think of it like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just going back to your habit of recording your hours of painting, that sort of, I guess, is that mathematical brain of yours kicking in. Why do you do that?
I do that. It's just to keep track of things, just to keep an idea. I just want to know how long things should take. It's never, I mean, it generally sneaks in at the back door at the end of a painting where I'm like, it took this long. Not that change, it doesn't change the prices of works. If a certain work I have a hard time with and I have to rework it and it takes longer, that does not change the price. The prices of works are built on size that they're finished at. I track hours just so I have an idea of how long things should take. And then if I say I'm aiming for a show that I've got 9 months for, then I can know, roughly speaking, with pretty good accuracy now after 4 years, what I'm working with. If I say I'm going to have 16 works, a couple large ones, 3 or 4 medium-sized works, and then say 8 or 9 of the small ones, then I know what I can fit into a deadline.
Yeah,
and then I
just very smart.
Yeah, I just build a plan, backwards track the hours I need, backwards track the habits that will need to be in place for that, and then just go and it sounds like an algorithm, like a robot, and I actively try and simplify and streamline things so that I can work like that, just to meet targets. And yeah, I don't know, it's just the way my brain wants to place things and organize things.
Yeah, I imagine it would be quite helpful. Yeah. And so after you must have felt like, oh, this is good. Like people like my work and it won a prize, and that must have been quite sort of encouraging for you as a sort of basically a new artist. Where did you go from there?
Yeah, it was great. It was the perfect start, really. It was, you don't want to be feeding off validation, but it's also good to have encouragement. So it was a nice sort of push and a thumbs up that it was really inspiring. I thought, this is great. I did this painting and I've been paid for it. I got the painting sold and I got a prize, and not that you get that sort of luck all the time, but at all, but a very encouraging start. And I was sort of fumbling around. I remember January, February of 2019, going around, getting a lot of weird sort of street scenes. I hadn't dialed into the car scene just yet, but there was a lot of... It was quite I didn't know what I was doing. I had no plan. My brain was turned off. My photography process as well as, and my hunting process, I guess, for looking for scenes is extremely like, there's no thinking. It's completely gut feel. I let my sort of feet dictate where I'm going to go. Let me like run down this alleyway and see what's here. I was taking photos of rubbish bins down the back of cafes where, you know, it's filthy down the back. There's like gutters and rusty corrugated iron fences and bins stuffed in the corner. And like, maybe if it's really bad, it might be like seagulls loitering, trying to scavenge. And I just found myself down these places. Took a lot of photos of that stuff. A lot of it didn't turn into paintings, but I did sort of happen across just some car scenes that were popping up more. And my next painting after that was this little piece of my car at the time, which was a Peugeot station wagon outside the gym one morning that I was training at. Did a little painting of that, and honestly, it started to click into place. My next 3 or 4 paintings followed suit in the sort of vein of simple car scenes. And it happened naturally without much thought. There was very little planning. I wasn't looking at other artists much for whatever reason. I wasn't looking around. I was just really letting this new sort of thing in my life. Literally, there was no plan, but it was this new thing, this new project that was unfolding of just documenting these cars. And a few months later, it had refined somewhat to more of that like 80s, 90s thing specifically. There was no words attached to this idea yet. Most of the quality descriptions of what I'm doing definitely haven't come from me either. There's other people talking about what I do, but it was instinctual. It was very little thought. It just felt like, weirdly enough, like this video game where there's these footpaths, these footprints in front of you that are almost glow in the dark, and it's like, go this way and just see what happens here. And I wasn't it just helped that I wasn't looking around much. There was nothing to distract me from that. I just engaged with this new sort of adventure that was happening. That was the catalyst of what's going on.
And you just felt like you found your groove, and you found your sort of interest point in the sort of subject matter, but then also in the sort of approach and the process.
Yeah, definitely. They were small paintings because I was still so slow at painting. I was still scared to go anywhere near that Vogel Street size painting again. And I was wanting to test things. I was wanting to cover ground as quickly as I could within the confines of a few weeks at a time on the small works. But the months flew by, and it was just it's so weird to think about. It's almost a dream, you know. It's hard to put into words, but it has refined a lot since then. My ability to create scenes and make something out of scenes that previously weren't really had anything going for them it's gotten better. I'm much more. My first reason to ever say capture a scene and get imagery of a scene is always the car. I'll not grab a camera and just like take random photos of a place and then try and do something else. It's the car. But now it's much more refined, where I'll be looking around at the whole area. Maybe it suits to get the car from the back if there's space, not always space. Maybe it's good from the side, depending on what's offering around it with the buildings or lampposts. I like to move around to find these like nice vertical axes to put through the paintings. Lampposts, trees, gutters. Often, like between those three, I'm usually studying what's there and making still quite instinctual decisions, I think. But it was slow. Thousands of photos taken in 2019, most of them crap, most of them scrapped, and they'll never be anything. But it was just like any skill.
Part of the process.
Yeah. Action, just taking action. You can't think about photography. I'm telling you now, the amount of times I've seen a car and there's an on opportunity and then the owner gets in it and drives off. I'm like,
No.
I wasn't trained for this. I wasn't ready, I should have, I need 50 of those pain points, which I've absolutely had, probably more. And, you bugger it up. You see a cool car, you see something that you like, and you botch the whole scene. It's a cool car, but the rest of it doesn't fit. And I'm quite very hard on myself usually. I just don't think, I just need to be better prepared. And it's easier now to get what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Before it was a shotgun effect.
You know what you want. So most of your photos have been taken, well, they started off in Dunedin.
Bulk of my favourite scenes have been taken in Dunedin. I've been in Auckland since the end of 2020, and it is a little more difficult, I'll definitely admit, to get what I'm looking for in Auckland. The buildings are more modern, generally speaking. The cars are more modern, definitely, generally speaking. There's just less of the scungy, beat-up cars from the 80s and 90s. There's less and less of them everywhere, unfortunately, but just the overall feel. Dunedin's great. There's a lot of heritage buildings. There's a lot of just these indifferent, neglected parts of Dunedin. I spend heaps of time around the wharf, and that works perfectly because that's often where maybe like some young car mechanic has his project Corolla parked outside his work, and it's just, there's so much there. Bricks that are like crumbling, you know how it goes, old factory buildings essentially. And there's just this interesting idea that I'm always looking to capture. It just naturally finds its way into my work, I think, of things that are kind of just in the state of demise, and the thought of entropy. I love the thought of entropy, the way that things naturally revert to chaos. You have to put an energy to keep things in order, and things with the law of entropy naturally revert to chaos. If you neglected the lounge for a few weeks, there's just like socks everywhere, or like bowls that accrue up, and you have to put an effort to keep it ordered. Cars are the same way, buildings are the same way, the human body is the same way. A garden that's neglected and doesn't get quality soil after a while is the same way. Everything's just always breaking down. Sometimes I wonder if modern cars are just like crushed recycled metal from old cars. And I have no idea how that works. I don't know if you can do that, but I sometimes think of this like natural order and cycle of life in the automobile industry. It's just interesting to see like maybe a modern Mazda CX-5, and just wondering if it's from crushed, I don't know, Mazda 323s or some 626. Who knows, I have no idea. Then maybe they don't use recycled metal. Maybe it's not strong enough, but I do. There's a few paintings in my show. There's definitely there's one of a Honda City which is completely, it's a wreck, and it's been left in this dump yard essentially, and I am just so hooked on that for whatever reason. There's so much there, you can't help but wonder, but like what was this car, who had it, what adventures did that car get up to, what kind of grounds, what kind of ground did it cover in its time, and like why did it end up like this? How did it just get biffed like this? They didn't even have the courtesy or maybe resources to get it crushed properly. It's just been biffed here. And yeah, who knows? I love that idea for some reason, but
well, it's kind of like storytelling, isn't it? Or it's imagining the stories.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as creating a narrative in some sense?
I haven't thought of it through that lens. There's probably an element of that for sure. I think of it as an urgent calling to go and document these cars. Bottom line is, 10 years from now, you won't see them. And even I've noticed massively since I got into this pattern of capturing them with getting photos and things like that, getting references to paintings. 3-4 years later, they are fewer and far between. They're diminishing, you know.
Already.
It's an effort to keep them going. My car, my 323 is it's got some rust spots, and if they get out of control, there's going to be, you know, I'll have to put in quite a bit of effort to keep it going. If you didn't love the car, it's a write-off.
Yeah.
You know? It will not be worth more than the rust repairs, essentially.
Yeah. And it starts to get so expensive.
Yeah, and it's a bucket, you know, it's gutless. I tried to overtake some people on the way here and ended up I pulled back into the left lane. I was like, this is ridiculous. I had a Golf that I sold, 2005 Golf, that I had before the Mazda, and, you know, you could pull out and it was quick, 2-liter turbo. The 323 is completely gutless. You know, no central locking. It's far from perfect, but it's vintage and aesthetic.
And it's cool. And you got up our steep driveway, so you did well.
Yeah, 100%. I had to thrash it, but we got there.
And what do you think you're going to do when you can't find these scenes with these cars?
That is a great question. It's something that I'm beginning to think more about slowly, but not too much yet. They exist and they are around, and I am looking into buying a second car from the 80s, potentially a Civic. Honda Civic hatch would be epic. I have started to draw my car, so I'm building up a sort of portfolio of somewhat mastery of drawing the 323, at least that model. I have a lot of photos.
And do you feel like you can just keep going back on all the photos you've been collecting for the last few years, and that could last you for the next 10 years? Or do you feel like you need to have more current work, supply of sort of captured moments?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have a lot, and would always like more photos, you know, it's never enough. It takes about 100 scenes to come across before you find an absolute ripper that you would say this probably warrants to be a large scale piece. So you'd never have enough photos. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's concerning me necessarily. It is what it is. Maybe it comes to the point where they're so far been and gone that they're out of, they're not even relatable anymore. When my sort of era of people are in their 40s and 50s, it will have nowhere near the impact and relatability as people who are currently in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how it's going to pan out, but it's a great point, and certainly something looming to deal with in the future.
It'd be very interesting to see, you know, where you head with that. Maybe just go up one decade every decade.
It's an option. have this body of work where, you know, I'm painting cars that are 30 years prior to whatever the current point in time is, something like that.
But then you will head
Swifts, doesn't it?
You'll head into the curved cars, which might be as interesting.
Toyota Priuses, maybe.
Yeah.
Goodness.
And you do have such a fascination for light and reflection and shadow, and you know, you capture that so beautifully in your paintings. Even just the body work, you know, the light and the body work and the reflection on the windows. And like you said earlier, you are looking for interesting shadows in your actual urban scene. So, you know, maybe that goes back to visiting Tim Wilson's gallery. But is it something that you really want to capture and you look for when you're taking photographs, or is it just something that is part of the challenge?
I like to cover a lot of ground. I like to test myself with a lot of different scenes. Blue sunny skies are great. generally if there's a blue sky, you'll have deep shadows under the car. So there's usually a lot of strong contrasts in that sort of scene. Grey days can be a little more difficult because there's diffused light. There's no clear shadows, and it can actually be more murky and tougher to figure out that painting. Whereas if you've got strong sunny days and the sort of stark polarity between like glints off the car, which is pure white, versus the deep shadows, that's easier oftentimes than the grey days. But I'm looking to capture, I'm just staying very light on my toes when I'm out and about, running completely off instinct. There's no way I can think faster than I can feel, I think. And I think, Jesus, that was a strange sentence. When it comes to doing the painting, it's the total opposite. Very, very much well thought out and planned out. But I guess I'm just looking for what aesthetically hits strums a chord with me, essentially. That can come in many different forms, whether the lighting's strong and, whatever, twilight scene, early morning, or if it's just glum and in the middle of the day. Maybe that feels and has a better feel and suit with a glum car. I did a painting in the show of a Ford Laser, and it was just you could just walk past it and no one would look at it. But I don't know why. There was this house in the middle. It was just this perfect triangular shape, almost smack bang in the middle. And this big tree on the left, which looked like this calligraphy brush. You'll see the painting hopefully once the show's out and about. But it was a grey day. It was boring Ford Laser. It was like this faded sort of olive green color, and it just had nothing going for it. But it was so interesting, and it would have been weird if there was more interesting light. I think the whole feel of the indifference of the scene just clicked, and I like my paintings for many different reasons. There's quite a lot of different things happening across them, and there's no plan. It's quite hard to put into words. It is gut feel, and you just trust that gut feel matters, I guess.
It definitely comes across. I think that's why. I think that's why people. One of the reasons why people are connecting so much to your work is you're bringing something quite unique, and maybe that is because of the way that you approach that sort of gut feel. Yeah,
I have no clue.
Yeah.
it happens quickly.
It feels fresh and new, and like it feels like your work is, it just feels like you're going to really go places with it. There's something special about it. And a lot of people have said to me before I was speaking with you that, this guy is going to be huge. And I know you've been told that yourself, and you've got galleries talking to you and all sorts of things happening. How are you finding that? How are you dealing with that?
I actively pay as little attention as possible. It doesn't matter. My whole thing is I just draw clear boundaries and parameters on what I know is working, what I feel is working. I don't even want to say that because I have difficulty putting it into practice, putting it into words on what's even happening. It does somewhat feel like I'm just responding to signals and I'm just like the middleman, essentially, like a messenger. The galleries, dealers selling work on my behalf, that's something different to what I do. That is the process that I'll always have, because admin and email checking and keeping up with people kills the whole thing. It's this weird sort of adventure and journey that I'm just sort of like unfolding on and letting happen, and I don't want to let too much of the thinking mind to interrupt it, and trust the instinct. Graham Sidney harps on that religiously. He did a podcast with Graham Douglas, The Good Oil. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Brilliant.
2 parts. The first part is mostly about his childhood and his early life integrating into his art practice. The second half, if you've only got an hour to listen, jump on that second half is a rip snorter, and he spells it out in just the most simple, layman, like clear cut, the most simple approach you could ever have. He essentially distills it down to, I have my gut feel, I have my instinct that I follow. He doesn't even do commissions because he just won't let a commission and someone else's idea being implanted into his mind interrupt whatever it is that's going on. He trusts his gut feel, not in like a narcissistic, I'm more important than someone else way, but he just says, this is unique at least. Let me just go with this because it's an idea that sprung from a unique organism, a unique human being. It must have some sort of importance or matter from that. And that's it. It's extremely simple. He listens to no one. And
probably good advice.
It's the starting point. The more I think through those layers of his philosophy, I'm like, that's the ticket.
Yeah.
You don't even have to, it doesn't matter. There's something that is too hard to put into words. And Rick Rubin is another person I've listened to a lot lately. His book, The Creative Act, A Way of Being, I believe it's called. Very, very good. Imagine listening to Rick Rubin or reading Rick Rubin, for God's sakes. He's 60. He's worked with the best artists from every demographic available. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Eminem, Jay-Z, Johnny Cash, Kendrick Lamar, the Beastie Boys. That was the sort of catalyst for him. And he wrote a book that's 400 pages long and didn't mention anything to do with music or people. He just sort of, it's almost a spiritual text. It's almost this esoteric text with these signposts on what he believes the things to look out for. There's no hard rules. Every single thing he says is a paradox. Everything has its flip side. And it's feeling. It's more trusting it, and he just says we just do it for fun, almost as inside humor is the bulk of a lot of his music, particularly the Beastie Boys, with zero financial outcome involved. Not even on the radar. They're just having fun, and they're just letting it unfold. And he said, that's step one, essentially, of a 10,000 step journey. So by all means, check out Rick Rubin. He's far more finessed at explaining a lot of these things than I could. I'm just sort of rambling on the gist of it. But yeah, I don't know. People say this and that. People say good things. People might criticize it. You have to basically ignore the whole thing. The old saying of ignoring both criticism and praise is huge because both fundamentally don't matter, which is weird. People say nice things and you have to be courteous back. You don't have to be, but it's the right thing to do, for God's sake. You be courteous, you be grateful and polite, but I'm still waking up tomorrow and I'm going to go ahead and do my work.
That's right.
It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. Well, that's so interesting, and it's definitely a book worth checking out, Rick Rubin's book. So we have got so much to talk about. I feel like we could talk for another hour very easily. We cannot finish this podcast without you telling us about your process. So I have included in your blog post a couple of process shots in one of your paintings, and that one happened to have a small grid, but I know you don't use that all the time. So can you tell us how you actually construct a painting from the beginning when you get your brushes out?
Yeah, so it kind of starts with the capturing of the scene. So nowadays I probably from about 2020 onwards, a lot of my 2019 photos are a little rough. I didn't get enough detail shots of the whole thing. So now I will have the base image and I'll try and get 9 detail shots all the way around just so I can see the fine-tuned parts of each area if I want to make it a large-scale painting. So once that's all set, I'll be looking to get the image down, and that can either come from the grid method. As you mentioned, there's an example of it on the blog post. Grid method, tried and tested, thousands of years old most likely. And I do use that if I'm having a hard time getting the print off for like a pencil trace through, essentially. It's good to know both, a lot like driving a manual car, learning to drive manual, and then you can drive an auto, but at least learn to have manual. So it's good to know the grid method. I'll usually sketch them through or trace them through as a point of saving time.
And the grid method is gridding up the photograph and the canvas?
Yeah.
And transferring.
Exactly. So that one on the website, you might be able to, the viewers might, or the listeners might be able to see it as part of the blog. I believe that was a 10 by 15 inch landscape, 10 by 15 inch panel. So I remember having 15 1-inch increments across the width and then 10 high. And then I'd done like this dotted line in between, which was every half inch. And I'd get that drawn up. I draw the exact same ratio on the grid. I can do that on Photoshop as well, lay it across the image. And then you just, you fill it all in. You draw the gaps, you draw everything in between the gaps and build out the image. Slow process, great to know. I often do it on my larger paintings actually, because it can be a hassle to get something huge printed off. You can do it in lots of little pieces, smaller pieces that you stitch together, but then it's, it can be a bit of a scrap. So, once that drawing's down, I'm making decisions by that point on what things will move if they need to. Sometimes I'll remove a lamppost. I've done that recently actually, just because the lamppost is not adding anything. It's usually when it's just weirdly off to the side and it's like, well, is it in or is it out the scene? Do I want to include it? In which case maybe I'll bring it in, usually placing it on like a third line vertically, or maybe a golden ratio line. These are some, timeless composition factors that help make things look aesthetic, essentially. So maybe I'll move lampposts, maybe I'll put a lamppost in if there isn't and I want a vertical feature. Oftentimes I'm getting rid of other cars if it makes sense to. There's this fine line between getting rid of too many of the other cars that aren't the subject and making it feel set up because there's nothing left and it's contrived, versus you can do that successfully, and I like to make it feel like lonely and empty enough to a point where it's still kind of believable. So usually my streetscapes where I'm looking down at the back of a car down a street, it's common if there's a bunch of cars to get rid of them. To
take out. And that is quite a feature of your work, that kind of lifeless urban environment. There's never any people, and as you say, quite often there's just that one car. Is that something that you like, just the look of, and you're wanting to kind of really highlight that particular car?
I think it comes from wanting to just distill down what matters in the scene. I know why I took the time to capture something, and it's first and foremost because of the subject car. That is the catalyst for the whole documentation of the whole series, essentially, is this ongoing coverage of this era of cars. But then it's like comes down to the parameters of the painting are very important on what you include and what matters, and you have to be quite discerning about distilling out what's unimportant. And if there's cars like way down the street, usually modern, almost inevitably, they just don't often need to be there. I'm looking at other features of what's there as balancing points, whether it's like, if I take, say, a scene of the back of a car, naturally it tends to form that there's this big angled line going down the right-hand side of the composition, top right down to the vanishing point at the end of the road, whether that's a tree line or the buildings immediately to the right as they drift off further and further down into the distance. These are just, I'm looking at it through geometry, essentially. Maybe down the middle of the street there's like a big building, a square building. So now I just think, in the foreground is this big car image. That's a big feature. It's a shape. To the right, as we step down into the scene, there's this other shape, and I'm just looking at it pretty fundamentally and quite large, and there's the smaller details as like the distractions, so they can go. I want that building there to feature the composition, but then those little cars and they're kind of just like, lint on the carpet. Like, get rid of it. It's all case by case. Sometimes it matters more to keep them there, but again,
that's really interesting.
Gut feel.
And I love the way you bring out all the beautiful features of those old buildings, and even like the names of the buildings and that kind of thing. Do you like the idea that people are personally connecting to the places that you portray? And I actually saw on your Instagram page recently that somebody said, that used to be my car in one of your paintings.
Yeah. I think I know which one you mean. Might have been a 2021 painting. There's the odd message like that. Small world.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Crazy.
I mean, it is even the way you title the paintings, that you're naming the car and the place. So is there something else that you're trying to give people when you're depicting a certain spot?
Not necessarily. I've had people excited. I've seen people excited both because they know a place and both because they didn't know a place. And they said, I love this car, but I like it because I don't even know where it is. And it's got this certain mystique about it. Other people say, this is XYZ place that meant whatever to me previously in life. It's a point of relatability, and they like it for that. And then, so the first guy wouldn't have liked it if he knew the spot. So that's crazy. The point being, I don't think of those, I don't think of the audience much at all, really. I just go ahead, try and spearhead the whole operation, essentially myself. The whole filter is just, again, that gut feel that I allow to sort of point me towards what seems to be important at the time. And if there's, panel beaters limited on the building and someone knows that location, that just happened to sort of be there. Usually, maybe in the future I'll get to the point where I want to distill it so far down that I remove all sign writing. I haven't thought about that, but I could see that could potentially happen, and becoming more sort of focused just on the balance of shapes and where lines meet and things like that. So yeah, and then, it's always, there's no hard rules. Every single thing that happens to sort of pop into my work is a paradox. Like, it could be there next time, it could be not. There's very little hard lines. The only thing that's sort of consistent is this era of cars essentially being the glue that joins it all together, which is nice. I don't set too many hard lines around it. It allows me to cover lots of different ground.
And you have had a few group shows and a solo show down in Dunedin, and now you're up in Auckland. You have you are represented by Parnell Gallery, and you've got a solo exhibition coming up next month. Can you tell us all about that? Yeah,
it's going to be 16 original works, quite a variety of different sizes. I have 2 large pieces, I believe. Let me think. There's like 3 or 4 medium-sized works, and then I think 8 or 9 of my sort of small pieces. And yeah, it's the only time I'll slightly interfere with my whole instinctual process with some thinking mind is if I'm getting ready for a show and I just have this general background goal of wanting to cover quite a variety of atmospheres. So I'll have a general goal of, say, let me have at least one night scene. Usually if it's daytime scenes, there's enough variety by nature, or just naturally, that pops in with sunny days, strong shadows, versus grey lighting with more sort of diffused light and less happening. There's a snow scene of a snow van in Queenstown. What else do I have? Yeah, there's twilight scenes. I just want to cover a lot of variety, more so from a point of testing my technical skills. So yeah, 7 months of work to get these 16 pieces out, half of which was spent on the two large ones. I have to be very careful with large paintings that I commit to because they're just enormous time expenses, and they can throw deadlines out the window quite quickly. They could just chew out the whole year. 3 or 4 big works a year would, I've never done that, but that's what it would be like at the large scale. So
yeah,
a lot of small works, and I'm excited. I'm excited to sort of see I'm just excited to sort of have a gathering with friends and family, if anything.
Yeah, it'd be amazing celebration of what you're doing. And what are the dates for that?
22nd of August is the opening night, and it runs through to the 5th of September. So 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Brilliant. Well, I'll definitely come to the opening.
Oh,
and it'd be lovely to meet your parents if they happen to be there.
They will be.
Yeah.
Up for the week.
I'd love to meet them.
It should be good. We've got some restaurants to check out. It's going to be a fun week.
That's
Looking
so
forward
good.
to it.
And you've got the Parnell Gallery doing amazing things, promoting your work. How do you find promoting yourself and marketing your work?
Yeah, so Parnell Gallery, fantastic, really, really great team. Sally, Anna, and all the ladies that work there, extremely professional. And I think my goal when I was starting to sort of find my feet was there seems to be this divide with how your work gets marketed, meaning what do you do? There's like the extreme parameters of letting a gallery do everything for you, and then the other end might be you build a big social media presence, YouTube videos potentially, posting Instagram content and all this stuff, and try and build up your own sort of email list. I go completely the opposite way. I would love like the gallery just to do all the marketing for me and just completely take that off my hands. Don't care. They take money from it. Like, so what? That buys me back the time to focus on what I believe is the only thing that matters, which is the work. I couldn't care less about trying to uphold some social media presence. I still post on Instagram when works are finished, but it's just, I want to get rid of my iPhone. I would like a brick phone. That's probably going to happen soon. Just a laptop, a decent camera, and a brick phone, and just to get as far away from all these naggy distractions that technology has sort of seeped in. I'm so big on this part that I view too much attention on building up your own brand as something completely different. It would be almost like, say, I would like to create this body of artwork and learn tennis and be a professional at both. It's like, it would be too hard, I think. I think one takes away from the other too much. That's just me. There's definitely artists who are doing fantastic things with their own social media presence and building up their own personal portfolio and, selling work and making a living from it. If they can, I guess, short circuit the gallery process through that, then, who could ever argue with that? That's amazing. And you're doing things and making a living potentially off your creations. But I personally have just made a decision to go fully as far other way as possible. The work that I do is its own thing. Selling it, trying to get financial compensation from my efforts is something different. I just leave that completely with the gallery.
Yeah.
And it buys you back your mind. It keeps your mind focused on, for me at least, it just seems to work, particularly with how long some of my paintings take. It just takes everything I've got to get them over the line. So.
I can imagine. And it's just one less thing on your to-do list.
Yeah, the less the better. It's the art isn't in doing more of the work and like sleeping 2 hours a night. The art is in living this refined, distilled, streamlined life where there's nothing left. I played so much cricket, and there was a stage in like the back end years of high school where I was planning on going and doing it over in the UK winter. It would have been a dream to play professional cricket. it kind of just, it got to sort of age 20 and there was already guys 2 or 3 years younger than me that were sort of passing my level. So that was how that panned out. But I just decided that it was an opportunity cost that I could no longer meet. My art was starting to get some momentum, and I just had to be very discerning on what matters and what doesn't matter, and leaving nothing left. If you walked into a white room with white walls and the only thing there was like a pot plant, then all your attention would probably be on that pot plant. And it's very easy just to like, now it's like, it'll be so easy just to study this pot plant because there's nothing left. So the art of exiting out all the unimportant stuff from your life is, well, it's like, for me and in my head, that's like step one, really. Just paving the way and giving yourself space, and you can fill that new ecosystem up with new ideas. So
I love that. That's a great analogy. The pot plant.
Thank you.
And you're amazing. You're 25 years old. You speak so eloquently about your work. You really seem to know what you want and where you're going and what's important to you. And even though you've only been painting for, 4 or 5 years, and you have this sort of wisdom beyond your years.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's a kind thing to say. Who knows where that comes from? It just seems to be a simple study of opportunity cost, to use a financial term, use of your time, which essentially is opportunity cost. What could I be doing instead of this thing? Should I be doing this or more of this? If I did less of this, what would that give me more of? Just these questions. Use of time, exiting out and distilling out what doesn't matter, leaving what you deem to matter. And now you're a chance, I think. When I'm in the painting season, you can hardly get hold of me. I'll turn my phone off sometimes for days because, and then I'll have a proper catch up with, say, my family. I'll try and jump on a Zoom or something like that. It's certainly a goal to have more in-depth conversation, but you don't need the messages, you don't need some notifications or Gmail to respond to in the middle of the day.
Yeah, it does get painful.
Read Cal Newport, who wrote a book called Deep Work, which is the study of literally how to use your time wisely. The most boring book on the planet, but probably the people who most need to read it couldn't even read it because it's so boring, and they need something more interesting. But social media just erodes your focus better than anything else. It's designed by that way, by the way, just to slowly like chip away at your ability to think complex ideas through and just make you just hooked on these little nothings, essentially. And it's very coming across quite hard on people that are making a lot of content, but this is just a point of view, essentially. It works for my slower nature of painting, absolutely. And I'm just trying to shave away and carve out as much deep focused hours in a week as possible. And once I've done that, I'm a bit of a chance then, I think.
Well, I mean, I can't wait to see what you actually achieve in the future. What are your dreams?
I try and stay present. I try not to get too far ahead. All that matters is like the next step in the journey. It fundamentally doesn't matter. The next painting session is the most important thing in my practice. And that's the motto, If I can get the next day's work right and treat it as the most important thing that I've got, which it essentially is once you really stop to think about it. A slow painting, as someone who's painting representationally, is just a compilation of 1,000 little victories. So the better and more high quality each of those victories can be, they add together to create something hopefully more compelling at the end. I don't need to think too far past that.
Fair enough.
I have a small goal to do more large works, which comes through being even more discerning with my use of time and being careful with overcommitting, overpromising. But I think I've got a lot more to give on a slightly larger scale than the smaller pieces that I've been doing so far. So yeah, we'll see. Very, very excited.
Yeah. So Elliot, shall we get on to the questions? An hour and a half in.
Wow.
Well, we're going for the record, but we probably won't quite make the record.
Oh, goodness, that's probably a good thing.
It's all good, though. It's all good stuff. There's definitely nothing I'd want to take out. So you are 25. You're not very old. Same age as my son. What would you say to your younger artistic self?
Yeah, this is a really good question. As you say, I haven't been in a huge amount of time, but I would say going back to 2019 and 2018, 2019 onwards, just to be a lot of what I've said, really, especially probably in the last 15 minutes, but to be completely uncompromising with the work. And there's many layers to that. So it comes down to being extremely careful with your time, not overcommitting yourself so you're stretched and time pressured to these deadlines. Under no circumstance allow other voices to come in and dictate what you should or shouldn't be doing. That gut feel seems to be all you have. I don't know really how else to say it than that. It's not necessarily good or bad, but it's all you have. It's just that inner sort of voice, I guess, speaking to you about what you should do. So be totally uncompromising, very careful with my time, and at all costs just leading and spearheading what you do with quality work, doing your best to shave away unimportant things. I understand an Instagram account is important, but I don't know. I won't do as many probably won't do as many work in progress photos coming forward, just for the sake of that literally being a time expense just to go and post that, just to pause the flow state of deep work to do a post. You can just post finished work at the end all at once, so you can batch it and just to be viciously careful with preserving those sacred painting sessions with no distraction. The phone's off. The close friends and family are aware of that around you, so they get it.
Yeah.
Kind of set expectations. It sounds quite like selfish, and I understand it certainly would be to an extent, but those are some of the decisions that kind of have to be made if you want to give it a real crack, I think.
Yeah. And you've mentioned Graham Sydney. What other artists do you admire?
Yeah, Graham's a big one. I think what is so interesting about him is his level of consistency across 50 years is freaking mind-boggling to me. I just don't think he's missed the mark once. It's crazy. I've studied as much as I can on his website. My girlfriend got out his 2014 book, I believe it was, from the library recently, and like to actually just get a proper copy. I should get onto that. But you see all these other paintings that you wouldn't see typically on the internet, and his ability to just create these scenes again and again and again, stormy scenes, hopeful, sunny scenes, just twilight scenes, and just everything in between those extremities. He just knocked it on the head. And it speaks to me about some sort of like internal value system. This goes way beyond talented painting, shall we say, but it speaks about how do you do that and maintain that level of excellence for 50 years. It's absolutely the most interesting part, I think, but just like military level discipline and focus and commitment to what he's doing. Another artist that I enjoy is Michael Haidt. He's just another very high level realist artist. I got into his work back in 2018 once I was getting into the landscapes scene somewhat. There's an artist called Felix Kelly who kind of, you see his work from time to time in the auction house world and the secondary market. I think he was born in the 20s, expatriate, went over to the UK and never came back, but he was like an illustrator or something like that, and he did these paintings as well of quite empty scenes, very tight skill set, very, very, very accurate and controlled use of paint. I love Brent Wong as well. Same.
He lives at Muriwai.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. We don't see him very much, but he's here.
Wow. Well, he's just he just did something very different, and again, like control of paint, and as a technician alone, just immaculate. Not a brush stroke available to see. It's so finessed, and Felix Kelly quite similar in that vein. And yeah, I guess the theme across my favorite artists, speaking about those four, would just be all very tight techniques, representational painters, and yeah, quite a sort of documentation, I guess, across the four of them. Brent Wong's being the sort of most surreal and abstract, but just interesting. They're quite distilled scenes often. Michael Heights with massive wide expanses, but then just like these foreground beehives that draw you in. And
love those.
There's so much space there with such a central focus. The emptiness allows you to wonder. And that's certainly what Graham's work hits out the park time and time again. Just the emptiness, empty space, and the mystique that sort of comes from that.
Amazing New Zealand artists, all of them. And as an artist, what would you say is your biggest challenge?
Time, and using it wisely. Could never use my time more wisely. Limiting distractions. But there's a second layer, which is I've got more of an ability to think about, particularly at the end of this recent deadline, and it is just being able to carve out a life around everything. It's certainly my natural strength is just to work my nose to the grinder, and it's sort of a work in progress to sort of maintain more of a balanced life.
You must have an understanding girlfriend.
Oh yeah, it couldn't be better, honestly. She is like, by default, I think she's somewhat introverted too. Certainly quite introverted to us. We don't have an overly crazy outgoing lifestyle, neither of us, which helps.
Yeah.
But
it's a good match.
Yeah, it clicks. It works. She works at a gallery auction house in Parnell International, so she's very much in that same world.
Which is great.
Yeah, we bounce ideas off each other. She helps out writing a lot of the things that I can't quite put into words. Very, very strong English mind, which fills a gap for me.
Yeah, that's really handy, isn't it?
I can do the maths.
Brilliant. Oh, well, seeing your face light up when you talk about her, it's very lovely.
I should be happy to hear that.
And finally, I think I kind of know the answer to this, and we have sort of touched on it, but what drives you to make the kind of work you make?
Yeah, it's a lot of what's been discussed at this stage. It's certainly that urgent feeling to kind of document and cover ground with a species of cars, maybe an era of cars is the better way, that's kind of rapidly leaving culture. So it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me and my friends when we first got into driving and having our own adventures. 2013 was when I was year 11, getting our learners. 2014 was when we started to pick up first cars, and so much of what I've painted so far, with the exception being the muscle cars, I suppose, so much of those mundane and indifferent and sort of Japanese imports was our first rides. So it was very nostalgic and fun to look back on and maintain.
Yeah, totally. Very cool. All right, well, I hope that we see you out at Muriwai again and you can bring your girlfriend out here to explore. And
Yes.
It's been such a pleasure meeting you, Elliot, and hearing your extremely inspirational, amazing story. It has been a real pleasure, and I think people listening will just find your story incredibly powerful and useful as well. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. And I'm keen to do another podcast puppy pat on my way out and maybe check out this beach around here. Thank you so much.